Hey, welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My guest in this segment probably doesn't need much introduction. Oh, we'll give him an introduction. Mr. $5 billion man himself, Bruce Linton, CEO and founder of Canopy Growth Corporation.
Wow, man! I thought maybe you got the $5 billion. You got the new studio.
I feel like I did get the $5 billion.
I come in, the signage is upgraded.
It's a proximity thing.
It's good. I like it.
It is.
Fancy microphones.
Yeah, we're making movies now.
It's wow, wow. When you presented your business plan, which was, I'm going to get a lot of content and I'm going to spend a lot of money doing it, and then I don't know what happens next. Right. You seem to have made an evolution off of that.
Right. Well, actually, you did read to the end of the business plan.
Do you remember that in my lobby?
Yeah.
So this is a good business plan, except it's missing the business part.
Right.
It's more like a content part.
I actually did write this business plan back in 2012, and we are executing on that business plan with some minor variations, largely thanks to the cannabis revolution.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wouldn't go so far as to say I couldn't have done it without you, because I would have died trying until some market came along. But enough about me.
Well, I'm obviously supporting you because you are the last stop on the media mayhem before I go back to regularly scheduled programming.
Oh,
and
I'm honored.
It's only about 90 degrees outside. Humidity is somewhere north of 90%. I'm wearing a suit, and I walked part of the way to get here. So, James,
yes,
talk to me.
All right, Bruce. The Constellation deal. Now they've given you a valuation of, what is it? 38%. Let's back up here.
So it was about a more than 50%.
51.2% premium to the average closing price on August 14th.
Yeah.
They are 38% owners with the rights to buy up to 51%?
Up to 50. So the way it's structured is they were at 16.4% because if they exercise their two warrants, which they don't currently have access to both pieces, but if they did exercise, that would bring them to 16.4%.
Okay.
So they were buying a little bit less than 25% of the company for a little bit more than $5 billion. Mm-hmm. And then they have a next tranche, which can move them from 38 and change to almost 50%.
Okay.
And that's at a premium above this premium.
Oh.
And then if they want to go to 55%, and throughout there they have the preemptive rights, meaning if we go and buy some, extractor in Outer Mongolia and use shares, they can actually top up to their pro rata position. And we have mechanisms if I want to do secondary or alternate financings of how they get to play.
Wow.
And then the final tranche is what I think I invented it. It's called a rainbow, which is they have the right to purchase up to 5% from the Treasury on a 5-day VWAP after they've exercised the two parts before. And so what I do is I get their fuel now, and we spend, and we grow, and we dominate. And then they take another bite, and I get about another $5 billion. We spend, and we grow, and we dominate.
Whoa.
And then you have this rainbow, which is priced at whatever the stock would be worth on a 5-day VWAP. And the reason I call it a rainbow is, and I actually call it a rainbow for several days. It caused some problems for the people doing, how do you analyze something that doesn't have a future price? But the point was that I and others, as independent shareholders, we want to know you got to go all the way to there at whatever price is 5 days, and there's no cap on what that would be.
Yeah.
And so rainbows typically are associated with no specific location and a pot of gold. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was a good rainbow.
Well, Suzanne, put me on the bid for 10,000 more shares, please. So what are you going to do with $5 billion?
Well, it's actually, it's sort of like a reverse order thing, right? Where they wanted to get to was this investment, the premium they paid was a change of control. Mm-hmm. Then you, by default, get $5 billion. So then what you say is, with $5 billion, how much would I allocate to international evolution and execution, acquisition of properties and building things out? You probably find that about 40% is likely to be the right number. And you say, well, how could you spend that much? Well, if you look at Canopy today, for Canada, we have about $1.4 billion of tangible assets on our book. So we have 11 other countries we want to be in. $2 billion doesn't seem like it would be enough. Then you got this other chunk, which would be thinking about, how do I vertically stack and finish everything I want, from how do I get down to extraction platforms that go right to the API, so the single cannabinoids? How do we get those then to be restructured into formulations and delivery mechanisms so we can do clinical trials, get outcomes, get DINs, run that race? Because those will have a lot of strength in other markets once you have the security here, because you have the IP.
Right.
And then you might want to keep a good chunk of that to also look at Okay, if we can make beverages in Canada, suppose we can. Suppose we've invented them, suppose we perfect them, we brand the hell out of them. Do you need a bottling and canning line to do that? Yes, you do. So we would build those things with Constellation.
You wouldn't just buy them.
No, because I want it in proximity to our facility.
You like Smith Smalls.
Yeah, and I want to have, I don't want to have somebody say, well, you asked to get 3 square bottle styles and the market only likes round bottles and it'll be 6 months till we change to the round bottle system. I'm good with like 6 minutes, 6 hours.
Right.
So if you don't own it, you don't control it. If you don't control it, you can't agilely turn to where you want to be.
Sure.
And so that's kind of, you start working your way through and all of a sudden you're going, that's quite a lot of money. And, there is an opportunity where we could see really significant growth in our company because, as you know, we've been pretty good at getting provinces to sign up. And I don't care if you're selling it online, in a store by the government or somebody else. Right now we're looking at about a minimum 67,000 kilograms that have been signed up, plus whatever Ontario wants, plus the fact that we have the biggest market share medical. I think that means there's a baseline revenue that's pretty substantial, which should mean that we're not actually eating heavily into the cash to run our business at all. So not a bad scenario.
You're always going to have a big balance sheet of cash.
We're very good at spending money, right?
Right.
Like we have spent the most money of anybody in the sector.
I guess you have.
And we
You've
built
raised
the most. And we built the most.
And you've built the most.
And now we have the most. So now you got it here. Now you got 11 other places in total.
Sure. There's more coming every day.
Sure.
Wow.
So I think like what we're really talking about, starting on Tuesday, I believe there's a 2-year race. And the 2-year race is to establish yourself with all of the elements I've just described to such a meaningful level that it'll be very important people continue to pursue the market so they can identify who comes second. But if you do the race starting now, I think we have a very good chance of making it clear who's number one in all these geographies, all the IP claims, all the packaging, everything you want. And if this causes everybody in pharma and packaged liquor to say, oh, good God, I better do something fast, I think that actually increases our league. You say, well, how could that be? Well, let's see, you get a gorilla to dance with a mouse, and they're not even dancing the same music. How does that turn out? It's going to be a disaster. So the reason we work well with them is we incrementally built trust, competency. We became comfortable in how we interacted. We established where the entrepreneurial linkages were in terms of how we made decisions, and now we can accelerate.
How did you meet Constellation in the first place?
Well, yeah, I think like a lot of connections these days, it starts with online stalking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were stalking them, or they were stalking you?
We're stalking them.
You really?
Yeah. And we were because in about November of 2016, Rob Sands, who's the CEO, had made a comment which may or may not have been properly captured, but that he thought he should be in the cannabis space, which was an unusual position for anybody not in the cannabis space, especially if they were in the alcohol beverage space. And so we were extraordinarily curious, why did he make that comment? And was he open in looking at this? So we began using LinkedIn as a way to reach into his organization, and a little shout out there for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it established connection, discussions. It went on for 11 months.
Right.
And so on the occasion of October 17, when we made that announcement, it shocked the hell out of the world. Nobody knew we were doing it. And guess what? On Tuesday, same thing. Which means in a sector where I can tell if you've had lunch probably based on rumors. There were no rumors on those 2 occasions of somewhere approaching $5.5 billion of investment.
Sure.
So I think that's pretty good.
That's pretty amazing. Bruce, I've had a few people ask me, and I thought, I'm pretty sure Bruce will have no problem with this, so I'm just going to throw it out there. But they're like, so I always say that Bruce came from humble beginnings and, was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. In fact, and we tell the story that, Bruce used to pitch people on Bay Street, and people find that like, wow, Bruce was one of us formerly.
What do you
mean? give me the best example of your humble origins in the capital markets.
Maybe you should make sure I qualify this. I meet many people who are greedy. Okay. And greedy people have a problem in that they believe their IQ increases as they become more wealthy. Which validates being greedy because now they're so smart. They're smarter than everybody else, and they should have more. Right?
Bad thinking.
I think greed and work ethic don't coexist. And so maybe one of the things I'm habitualized to use an interesting word for our sector, is you just work, right? Like today I did a presentation at a marijuana conference, and the presentation and discussion was 1 hour. I spent 1 hour and 40 minutes answering people's questions afterwards.
Yes, I saw
But
that.
I think you should.
Right.
And yesterday I had a fairly long day in New York, and when I got to Toronto, I had committed 2 months ago to attend a broker's house for a client's reception because that broker 3 and 4 years ago actually supported us. And so I made sure I curtailed my interviews on time to get a flight so I could go to his house and thank his clients for supporting us 4 years ago.
Bruce Linton is a man of the people.
Well, no, but I think it's very important, right? If you say, well, I don't need that person anymore.
Right.
That doesn't matter to me. It's no longer a relevant. I think that's where you start falling apart. And so I don't think it's a good habit to get into those patterns where you disregard the people who helped you get where you are.
Right.
And so I've enjoyed the announcement. I enjoyed the negotiations way more than the announcement.
Sure.
Like, it takes a lot of time to tire out some Goldman Sachs people. Like, we had last weekend, apparently it was sunny out, but we started at 8 in the morning on Saturday, got done around 11:30 at night. And we thought we'd just get together for a bit more on Sunday, and that went from about 9 in the morning until 10 at night. And that was after we've been working on it most days of the week. Wow. And I like that. I probably look tired. My mom texted me yesterday to say, you look tired on TV. And I said, that's because I am tired on TV.
Actually, well, I've sat across from you a million times, and you do come across as a little bit worn right now.
Well, I haven't had a haircut in a while. I haven't had a proper sleep. I actually, so we finished the deal while I was in New York. I flew down to New York because I had to be on the right side of the border in case this got done, but it wasn't done. So then we were on the phone, we were doing stuff and working on stuff and getting fairness opinions, all that stuff. And finally the deal was done around 12:30, and then it's a good time to actually turn your attention to the press release, which you've worked through and you're fine with. But then you have to think about the call in the morning and the quarter. So, you go to sleep for your hour, and then you wake up and you go, okay, that was quite refreshing. And then you do yesterday and last night. So I do apologize to your viewers if I look a little tired. Because you know what? I'm also disheveled. Like the hair thing, I don't have that much hair.
You're in the cannabis business.
But I do not have that much hair, but there's no excuse for it being unkept.
You got to do something for your $5 billion.
Well, I'm still wearing my high.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah. No, you got to keep those on.
Sure. Okay, so let's cut straight to October 17th. $5 billion, put that aside. That gives you such a momentum that you're now, the next biggest companies is standing in the shadow looking up and saying, how do we get back there?
But they shouldn't do that.
Well, they can't help it. It's human nature.
No. But you have to figure out, right, like, it's the best thing for the sector, fully and completely, is that we dominate and win. There will still be tons for everybody to do. But if you at least have a clear leader that has made good decisions, represents the sector well, doesn't get in trouble by doing funny little side corporations to go into the US, or doesn't get in trouble because, the things that people do,
right.
It is very good for the sector because we're not competing with each other. What we're trying to do is transform society. And the more somebody grabs up my ankles, all they do is piss me off and try to slow me down, but it doesn't actually achieve the mission, which creates the business, which is where all the value is.
Right.
So October. To interject there, you were talking about October. October is going to be madness. And I don't care, somebody said to me today, they said, you know what it's going to be like in October in Ontario? I said, what? They said, world's best concert coming for one night only, and you're trying to buy tickets online. You're going to be going like this. There's going to be people, it's going to crash the system because there's going to be so many people who want to do it. And a lot of people didn't think through, like, that's going to be interesting, and it's a very discreet way, right? Like, everybody knows how to do that right now for medical. And by the time the stores are ready is when the really splashy products hit.
Right.
Which means that when the first time you go in the store, all the good stuff's there, whether it's beverages, ingestibles, all the stuff that's coming next with vapes. So I would sooner have them come to stores in Ontario that we own, train, stock up, and the first experience is quite a comprehensive offering. And so if you want to buy the stock today and sell it tomorrow, probably crappy. If you actually want to make money over some duration, it's a pretty good thing.
Well, I consider Canopy, personally, I consider it a legacy stock. Not one you're ever going to sell. It's one you're going to pass on to your progeny.
It's kind of funny you're talking about passing something around and we're talking about a cannabis stock.
The one thing I've noticed about cannabis conversations is the analogies actually exceed the real essence of the meaning. So
yeah, for sure.
It's fantastic. So on October 17th, how many retail locations will you have in Canada?
They're still coming out of Alberta, but we have, I may misrepresent it, so please give the future-looking statement. I think we're at 6, could be 8 in Newfoundland, including one at the point of production, which the point of production won't be ready on the 17th because we're building the building now that's going to be our grow down there.
Right.
We have 6 or 8 in Alberta, same in Manitoba, and we've got the chunk through Alberta. So we get Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Newfoundland, Alberta coming up. Then we're hoping and expecting that the approach taken by those 3 provinces will be what Ontario takes. And I suspect Ontario would find that having 250 might be the minimum, and I bet they don't need 550 right away. But that's almost 10 times more than the province is going to have.
Right.
And so, you know, when you say, well, how do you use money? Well, building out a decent store so that it's got all the security controls and has all the, you know, you want to make it look nice. You're not going to spend less than, depending on the province, between $250 and $300 a square foot to build those.
Right.
And so then the question isn't how many stores, how many square feet are you filling out? And suppose each store is anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000 square feet. You can start to say, shit, people in a lot of stores, they got to spend a lot of money, but you will make quite good money on them too.
Right. So have you got a actual sort of enterprise within your enterprise that's out there identifying locations, picking stores, dealing with real landlords?
Yeah. We've kind of had that thing going on for a while because all the construction and the leasing, and we have professional agents. So as an example, what that yields is we end up with these stores in Newfoundland, but our flagship store is on Water Street. And it's not just on Water Street, it's right across the road from this big gray stone building that used to be the courthouse for Newfoundland. So I think it's pretty cool. On the day Prohibition ends, at the earliest hour it can end in Canada because of the time difference, the first place I want to be spotted buying cannabis is directly across from the courthouse. And
Just for irony's sake.
Right, but so I think it's very important that you don't just find locations, you find locations that are the locations.
Right.
And I think we've done a pretty good job of that.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw one of your locations. I was on Davie Street in Vancouver a month ago, I guess, and I was like, oh, there's the now very recognizable Hi sitting right there over some windows. Yeah, so it was like, oh, well, that's great. It's becoming so recognizable. There's a place down here in Queen Street in Toronto coming together.
Yeah, so Queen and Peter, we got that place a year ago
That's a
to
hell of
be
a
our
location.
office
Yeah.
above the first floor. And the first floor, we thought, we can teach people like how to do stuff in here. If we can't sell stuff, we'll have swag. But who knows? It's a pretty good location.
Yeah, no
Queen
kidding.
and Peter. I think neighbors sell like really high-end sports shoes and stuff like that.
Yep.
So it is one of the spots.
And it's one of the most iconic neighborhoods in Toronto.
Yeah. So
Anyways,
we got that going.
Bruce, it's amazing to follow your progress. Your leadership in the industry is something that makes us all proud. I can say I speak for most everybody. And
I did get a couple of texts from folks in the sector, 2 of them, to say thanks for doing this and re-rating it. But that's 2 of them that recognize this was a pretty good thing for everybody.
Right.
The only people who really hated the transaction were the guys that were short a bunch of the people who didn't get the money.
Right.
A couple of them calling like, I love Europe, but Jesus, they didn't have to go up. And I think I was fairly clear, I am not buying any of them.
Yes.
So there's no sense in selling me and buying them and waiting for a premium on a takeout because that's not going to happen.
Right. An
But-
associate of mine bought it. I think he got it at $29 in the pre-market and sold it at $37 that day, just for an in-day trade, causing celebration. He's buying lunch next week.
I would say if he could just do that every day, his compounded rate of return would be quite acceptable.
Yeah, actually, he'd be able to write $5 billion checks. Anyways, let's leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your participation. We'll come back to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, James.